We are Kimberly and Lyle Wick, both licensed marriage and family therapists, mother and daughter. We have been in the trenches with family addiction and are now passionate about helping others heal and be their best selves. Families are often blamed for the addiction of a loved one, but let's be clear, you didn't cause it and you can't cure it. In this video, I'm going to talk about how families can let go of blame and how they can start to focus on what they can control, their own healing. If you're feeling guilty, like your loved one's struggles are your fault, or you're feeling like family is to blame for your loved one's addiction, it's so important to reframe that. Here's the truth. It is not your fault. I think when people are in really challenging situations and there's addiction in the family system, it's very scary for people who loved the person who's struggling. And the whole family system ends up struggling because this is a family disease. And what is meant by family disease is the addiction model looks at addiction as a disease. When one person is struggling in addiction, the family members tend to want to rescue, fix, and save their loved one, and they become desperate. I know I did with my loved ones, desperate to save them and to prevent the family from falling apart. When we do that, it gets very complicated because we end up in behaviors that we wouldn't normally ever think that we would do. We end up enabling our loved ones, and as a result, we put ourselves on the back burner and we start to really lose who we are. When we lose who we are in a sense of not being able to walk in a grounded way, it's challenging because when there's judgment or we start to be concerned about what others might think, we're susceptible to that if we aren't coming from a grounded place. If we're feeling guilty and we feel like we are the cause of someone else's addiction, it's a trap and it's really, really hard to get out of. Al-Anon is the sister meeting for Alcoholics Anonymous, and I attended that for years. It was super helpful for me when I was in the trenches with family addiction. And there's an Al-Anon saying, I didn't cause it, I can't control it, I can't cure it. And that was really helpful for me because it started to help me to let go what I cannot control. It helped me to start to focus on what I can control. It also helped me not buy into the stigma of addiction. And as a result, I started to not care as much about what others thought. I stopped feeling like I was to blame, and I was more able to accept that, this is what we're in right now. I need to really focus on what I can control, which is my own behavior. It was so helpful for me not to be in a place other than in my own space. And what I mean by that is when we're worried about what other people think, we're not grounded. We're not coming from a centered place. We struggle then to be able to focus on what we can control again, which is our own behavior. Acceptance and compassion are so important. And I just want to share with you a little story about something that was very challenging for me. My daughter was in her early stages of addiction, and we had had a lot of deaths in our family. And so as a result, I was very, very protective over her, and I was in complete denial. And a family member pointed out to me that they thought that she was struggling and in trouble. That was so triggering for me because my denial combined with my protection of my daughter, it prompted me to, one, shut down from not engaging in that conversation because I just was at that time in my life too exhausted to even entertain having a conversation with my family, loved one, about my daughter's personal situation. And it kept me in denial. I then later recognized that my family member was actually correct and that my denial was in the driver's seat. And so this is an example of not that my family member was blaming me at all, but this is just a great example for our denial allowing us to be in a place where we aren't setting boundaries or we aren't advocating for ourselves in a way that allows us to take control control and find our peace. This is different in terms of families taking the blame or me taking the blame for my daughter's addiction. But what it did bring up for me is that my denial was in the driver's seat, and it was very challenging for me to become accepting of the situation so that I could really get enough distance to view this is the situation and what is my part in it and how am I working to advocate and have self-compassion and set boundaries and all of those things that bring us away from being in the blame. If any of what I said resonates for you, reclaim your peace. You can download our freebies at healingfamilyaddiction.com and subscribe for more tips.